Hello and welcome to Rule of Three's video review for Fuse, a third-person team-based shooter from Insomniac Games. With me, like usual, are Synyster Dreamer. How are you doing?
Pretty well, and yourself?
I'm doing excellent. And Impressions. How are you doing, good sir?
Doing all right.
All right, so let's get on with this. So this is a new IP, so we don't have to go into detail. So the story of Fuse, it's set in the near future. You play as one of four characters from a mercenary group, I believe, called Overstrike 9. And you're hired by a client to go get this unknown element known as Fuse before it is stolen from by another kind of evil mercenary group known as the Raven Corporation. And over the course of the game, you get some weird guns that are run by Fuse and allow crazy stuff to happen, like freezing people or creating mini black holes or creating shields and doing a bunch of really weird things. On the whole, I don't know, the story is kind of it was okay, a little weak. It got a little confusing on some points, but I don't know. It was okay at best.
Yeah,
Sinister?
it wasn't the world's greatest storyline. I could figure it out what was going on, but in general, it's just like, okay, so I'm just a mercenary on a team to get a product for a client and kill things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Impressions?
I agree. The story itself wasn't anything particularly new. All the same, I did find it, compelling enough to keep playing. I did, however, feel it was a bit of a missed opportunity to delve into the histories of each character. If maybe they had fleshed them out a little more, that might have made it better.
And I think
But
that's my
for them,
biggest beef with it.
yeah. I mean, it seems like they had potential for a lot of, context and backstory. They all seem to have very different attitudes about how they operate. And had they explored that, I felt it would have been, it would have been great instead of just okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean there are
Story wise,
yeah,
yes.
because I mean there are a couple of great like kind of dialogue exchanges between these characters, but they never explain kind of a backstory behind some of those, so it
Mhm.
just kind of gets lost.
They have the
Yeah,
personality, definitely.
Yeah.
yeah. The most background that explained between characters is the little bio that you get when you go to select which character you want to play as. But that's about it. It's like, okay, here's a little background of why they're here. But that's about it.
Yeah. So let's get into gameplay. So as I said, Fuse is a heavily co-op game. You choose one of four characters, and you can play online or single player. Did either of you guys play online or with a friend?
I did.
Okay,
I've
Sinister.
played online, but most of the time I found people just didn't want to play with me, so I was like, okay, whatever.
Okay, I stuck them in mostly single player. So at least in single player, you have the option of swapping between all four characters at any time you want by pushing a button. I hated doing that because most of the time the computers were nowhere near where I was hoping they would be. So I'd switch to the character I needed, move them to where, I needed them to be, do what I needed them to do, and then switch back to the character that I'm good with or whatever. And they're now nowhere near where I want them to be. So that got kind of frustrating. It probably is not quite as bad in multiplayer, I'm guessing, but at least single player, the character swapping mechanic didn't work that well. Sinister?
Quick
Great.
side point before you proceed. Did you level each of them evenly,
Uh,
or as best as you could, rather?
Well, I just played as one. I mean, all the characters level up on their own, even if you're not playing them. But I
But
mean,
you
my
attributed the points though.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, that's all. Okay, never mind. Go on.
yeah.
I just
It's
wanted to
just
clarify.
my the character I played the most was way ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, they were at least a level ahead. Well, at least what I noticed when I was playing was the computers would be a one level behind at least my character. And that was pretty much when I was playing. It was okay, one level behind, and the jump mechanic between characters, I agree, was spotty. It was like great. They didn't make the AI that intelligent and to stick together and keep close.
And let's go to impressions. How did multiplayer with the characters work? These
So I'm surprised actually that you guys didn't care for it. I actually really liked the switching mechanic. I felt it was. I actually really appreciated it because when in typical class-based shooters, they offer you four different characters, which means four different campaigns. But at least in this one, you actually got to play as each of them and switch between them as needed and level them up close. I mean, obviously one's going to be ahead, but closely enough that you can at least function as a unit. Uh, I mean, an example on my end, if I was playing by myself, if I got into trouble with, say, Dalton, the shield guy, I would just simply switch over to the medic, throw the med beacon at myself across the room, and that would help me immensely. I, I mean, I do agree the one part of the AI that I felt could have improved, that could have benefited from like a command system of sorts, because it's very hard to collaborate with an AI. You know, it's just not. We're just not at that level yet.
Right.
You guys kind of get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no way you can have Dalton shield for you so that you can shoot exactly where you want him to be. You kind of have to go with where he is, and then hopefully it works out.
Yeah.
Which is why I actually was able to try it out multiplayer with another friend, a mutual friend of ours, Zine. He and I pretty much blew through the second half of the campaign, and it was significantly better just having a person to collaborate with.
Which brings us into guns. So each one of the 4 characters has a different gun that does different things. You can use these guns to basically combo. Like you can, I played the chick with the what is called the shatter gun, which is she turned a bunch of characters into crystals. And then what I would do is I would usually switch to the guy with the crossbow and then light them on fire and cause a huge explosion and like chain reaction that would chain and catch a couple people on fire. But you can do other fun things with the different characters, like with the black hole and create like fire holes and stuff. And it was really cool. And I think that's one of the game's strong points is this kind of gun combo system.
Yeah, the gun combo system in this game was, I think, actually done pretty well, because the fact that each person has a gun specific to them. It's like Dalton, the main character, if you say you could say, or team leader. His mag shield was actually pretty interesting because of the fact that he would put it up, you can shoot through it, hit the enemy, and combo with that. And then also the fact that if you timed it right, when he launches the shield forward and you combo with whatever gun you have, you'd be scoring bigger points.
Impressions?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they definitely took every possible combination into consideration. Anytime you, at the very least, paired 2 different ones. So what, 4 guns times pairs? What, 8 possible combinations? No, not even. No, there's more than that. I can't do the math right now. But yeah, they actually went so far as to name every single different combination of the 2. So, and I never managed to combine 3. I don't know if it's possible, or likewise with 4. I'm actually curious if that's even possible. But yeah, no,
don't
it's
know.
no, it definitely, yeah, no, it definitely is a highlight though of the game where you can just toy with different play styles, and they actually result in different deaths and animations for the characters, the enemies. So yeah, definitely a cool feature.
Yep. And there are other guns in the game that you can pick up, but they're not worth talking about because you only use those when your main guns are out of ammo. That's all
Yeah,
they were.
they're the standard guns that in game.
Yeah.
Regular ammo.
And the next thing I want to go to is cover. This game has a cover system, like most third-base squad shooters do. And I don't know, I felt the cover system of this was kind of touchy, especially with rolling in and out of cover.
Yeah, it wasn't the world's best cover system that's been made. Because even if you just tap the stick the wrong direction, your character could have the chance of popping off of it and get way delayed by the enemy.
Impressions?
Yeah, I agree. There definitely is a bit of a learning curve if you want to be able to use it properly. I found myself having to constantly correct an incorrect maneuver that I made via adjusting the camera or jumping back into cover and trying again. It's just it could have been it could have been better. Think like Uncharted, but not as good.
Yeah, I see why you're
Close.
putting it.
Like I would say between I don't know, like even similar to Gears of War, even because it made you choose between vaulting. There's an actual
That's true.
button for choosing which action you want to end up doing, but it didn't do it as well.
Right.
So I guess a poorer Gears of War would be a better comparison. Forget Uncharted.
Okay. And the next thing I want to talk about is we've kind of mentioned it is talent trees. As you level up, you get points to put into these little talent trees that increase different things. There's one generic one that everybody has, and then usually the other 2 are a little bit more character specific, or at least one is. Like I
Definitely
said,
the ones based on the echelon, not the echelon,
the
uh,
guns,
yeah, the what are they called?
the fuse guns.
Yeah, there you go. Fuse guns.
Yeah. On the whole, I mean, it's very simplistic, but once again, I think they were too generic, and because they were all the same, other than that one talent that changed for that character's gun. And I think they could have done a little better on that instead of just give everybody the same thing, except change that one talent to be, that gun.
Yeah, pretty much. All it was okay. Here, everyone has the same except for your person's gun style, but other than that, it's all basic. It's easy enough for a 5-year-old to understand.
It's very linear. It's not. It doesn't give you a lot of freedom or choice. You have to put in a certain number of points, obviously, into one tree to move on, and really, it's not even a tier. It's barely a tier. It's 3 lines.
Yeah.
And plus, it's just. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. There's no distinction really between the tiers. It was just one big thing you had to level, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So.
All right, and the last thing I want to talk about is the echelon mode. Echelon mode is a separate from story mode, where it's just wave after wave of enemies. It's a quick way to grab money to buy special talents called perks, which we didn't really talk about, but they're basically just a little bit more. They're team bonuses per se. Echelon mode is okay. Once again, I'm not a big fan of wave after wave games just because they get kind of boring after a while.
They're fun when you're like bored and you want to play it, but it really didn't add anything for multiplayer except for it's like, oh hey, look, you can go play with more other people on this game, but there's no like team match things of pinning people against people.
Right.
Well, I don't know what you guys were doing, but I actually really enjoyed Echelon mode.
Really?
It was a good way to just get some action in there, and earn fuse points for stuff that you can actually use in the campaign. Also, the one thing I will mention back again is you mentioned the perks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff that you earn for that, those really weren't that great.
No.
That's one reason to not play it. I mean, or to not be motivated rather to play it, is because they really don't help you that much. Because you can only equip one at a time. That's another thing. That was kind of stupid. But then again, I did play with a friend, so
Yeah, and I think that's a big difference with
yeah.
this game.
It might be why I enjoyed this game seemingly more than you guys did.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, worth playing that mode. So.
Okay, and I lied. The last thing I want to talk about, which is very, very quickly, is there's some collectible files hidden in the world that give you a little bit more background into the game. I didn't care for it. I'm usually a big fan of collectibles, but the lore and stuff you got were kind of crappy. Very, very short and didn't really tell you much.
They didn't really fill you in on much. It was like, oh hey, look, some little information of what happened in this area, or hey, a little bit more information on your gun. If you actually come across that info on your gun, you might actually come across one of their partner's guns, and that was about it. And it's like, really? I mean, I expect this kind of stuff. I expect, some background to what's going on and why this is happening, not just it's already happened. This is kind of what's the reason why.
Synyster or impressions?
Yeah, I agree. When I start, when the story itself was already fairly weak, I can see the collectibles were an effort to kind of augment that. But when it kind of already had a shaky foundation as it is, like for example, one of the documents I remember getting was a letter, which made absolutely no sense because there's no context to draw from. I can infer certain things based on, my experience with typical sci-fi setting games, but because the story itself wasn't well developed, there really wasn't a point to collecting the collectibles, even for the sake of story, So, I felt it's one of those things that could have been done better.
Okay, and with that, we're going to go into our rating system. So if you've never listened to a Rule of 3 review before, we do not use a point system because I decided that we don't. And that's just how it is. Instead, we use a buy, rent, pass system. Buy means we believe that it's worth the full price of whatever the publisher wants for the game on release, whether it's 60, 50, 40, whatever. The game is just fun enough or has enough content, and we just generally agree that, whatever they ask for is worth it. A rent is double fold. It means it's it's a good game, but we suggest either renting it from GameFly or Redbox or something, or waiting for it to go on sale for like half off or buy a used copy. It's not quite worth the full price, but it is, it may be worth a play, or at least if you're curious, give it a shot. And pass means make it explode and be done with it. Just throw it away. We'll start out with impressions, since you played multiplayer. What do you give it?
Yeah. Not surprisingly, I do give this game a buy. I very, very strongly recommend that you play with another person. I'm noticing already that's makes a big difference in the experience you'll have with this game. Even if you play by yourself, I still think it's worth playing. Maybe not. Maybe it might go down to a rent then if you're plan on playing by yourself. But if you're looking for something to blow through with a buddy, definitely buy this game.
All right, Synyster.
I give the game a rent because the fact that it's a nice little third-person shooter, and the story's okay, but it's really not worth the money to pay for it just to sit there and play campaign over and over again and do wave mode. Unless you like that kind of deal. Otherwise, yeah, it didn't really impress me.
All right, and I also give this a rent, and really it's because the single-player experience wasn't the greatest for me. Like I said, I had problems with the character swapping. The gun in the story was weak. The guns were really cool, and honestly, I do agree with impressions. If you're playing with a buddy, I can see this game being a lot of fun. But if you're like me and you don't have time to play with friends, or you have none,
Hey!
I was about to say, you found us.
No, I have friends. I'm just joking.
This is my last one here on Rule of 3. Just seen it. No.
Yeah.
My resignation.
No. But on a serious note, yeah, if you have a friend to play with this, I can see this game being a lot more fun. But like I said, in my experience, it was a rent, but it is a solid rent at that. So there you have it. You have 2 rents and a buy. Thanks for listening. Next week, I believe, is Remember Me, so keep an eye out for that. Remember to leave a comment below for our summer whatever game you want giveaway that we're doing. Make sure to tell friends as well. The more the merrier. The bigger community, the more games I'm willing to give out. Make sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. Check out our website, Rule of 3, for the written reviews, which hopefully will be up by Saturday, if not tomorrow or Sunday. They'll be up sometime. And that's it. So, also subscribe. I like subscribing. That's it. Thanks for listening, and always remember to trust in the Rule of 3.